Hi, everyone. Without any hesitation, I'm so excited to introduce Trina and welcome Trina Rosen. Trina, thank you again for sharing your information. I know we're all anxious to hear the latest and looking forward to it myself. So thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you, Diane. Thank you for inviting me to speak. My name is Trina Rosen. I am a certified public accountant. My practice is located in South Pasadena, which is part of LA County, California, and I specialize in individuals, sole proprietors, and small businesses. Just like many of you, I have been adjusting to the new normal for the past month, also concentrating on learning the CARES Act and helping my clients really navigate this hard reality that we're in and the fast moving legislation that's coming, I feel like almost daily. A lot has happened since our last meeting 2 weeks ago, Diane. So I just want to kind of quickly go over that. PPP program has run out of money, as many of you have heard. Right before that, EIDL clarified for us how we should treat sole proprietors for PPP purposes. That was nice. And right after that, they ran out of money. They also clarified what we should do with the partners and their self-employment income. IRS launched their Get My Payment site, where if you qualify, you can actually check on the status of your economic impact payment. And most importantly, some of the states started to get their act together, specifically New York, and began accepting applications for the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Insurance, also known as PUA. So that was a positive development. Before I jump into my PowerPoint presentation, I just want to make a comment, and it's a personal professional opinion on PPP program running out of money. We know that there's another bill in Congress, and hopefully they're going to get their act together this week. And regardless of your party affiliation, whether you're Republican or Democrat, nobody wants to see small businesses fail. So I feel that even if they run out of the next stimulus, there's going to be stimulus 3 and 4. So I wouldn't panic about this popular program running out. I think they're going to keep funding it as long as there is, interest in it. And, again, that's something that, and I tell my client, that's something that we cannot control. We cannot control when the Congress will get their act together and fund more money to that program. But what we can't control is having our numbers and being prepared with the paperwork. So once they open the program back up, you can actually fill out an application. So I'm going to start my PowerPoint presentation now. We have a lot to cover.
Trina, can I just interrupt you just before, because I know the one thing that I remembered from all of your advice is just apply.
Just apply.
Just
exactly.
apply, because we just got a comment as you were speaking from Sally. Thank you. That new funding just passed.
Yay.
In Congress. So, but I want to just remind you to remind everyone, because that's what I did after hearing you.
Yeah. So again, concentrate on what you can control. Apply, get your numbers together, get ready for an application. Again, if they're gonna run out again, there's gonna be more money. So don't concentrate on that. So I'm kind of giving this helicopter view today of what's going on with unemployment, what's going on with PPP program and EIDL. And it's not gonna go into depth. Obviously, we don't have enough time. So hopefully you'll find this somewhat informative. So let me start the screen share. And so just as I mentioned before, IRS has launched Get My Payment site. Website, don't click on anything yet because you will get an error message. It doesn't work yet, but hopefully soon they will be able to authenticate you and you'll be able to see the status of your payment if you're one of the lucky ones that qualifies. The next subject that I want to talk about is traditional employment insurance, which is also known as UI, versus the pandemic unemployment assistance, which is known as PUA, and what are the difference between the two. So traditional unemployment insurance is obviously for someone that is a W-2 employee, they would apply with the state. Pandemic unemployment assistance is also administered through your state, so nothing is administered through the federal government, but it is a new federal government program that it provides unemployment assistance for Americans who would not usually qualify for traditional unemployment insurance, such as self-employed, independent contractors, gig workers, and primary caregivers for children whose school has been closed due to the virus. Some important facts that I kind of want to go over today. So I hear from a lot of my clients, I've applied a month ago, I haven't heard back. What is going on? So obviously all unemployment systems are overwhelmed. I promise you, a human will call you back one day. And once they do, and your claim is actually approved, you will receive benefits backdated to the first day of your unemployment. So it's not when you apply, it is not when you get the interview, it's actually when they establish that you needed those benefits. It's actually a cool program. It provides up to 39 weeks of benefits. Right next in the middle, New York's said that their PUA is available between January 27 and December 31st. So backdating it, they will not backdate it past January 27. In California, we always have to be different. So ours start February 2nd through December 26th. That's just how our state is. And in addition to the PUA, so PUA is based on the amounts that are available through your state unemployment. For example, in California, our max weekly benefit is $450. CARES Act also provides additional $600 a week benefit for the PUA. So for example, if you're in New York and it's determined that your weekly benefit is $350, with this CARES Act PUA, you will get additional $600 in addition to your $350. This is, however, only valid between the weeks of March 29 and July 31st. That's because when the law was passed. So those are important information to know. I know in New York, you don't need to apply separately for this extra $600 a week. They will give it to you automatically once your claim is approved. I'm kind of listing the unemployment websites. Again, the states were not prepared for it. What I heard is New York started administering this type of claims already, so that's a good news. Again, they're done through your state's unemployment insurance website. I'm going to jump right into the Paycheck Protection Program, a very popular program, very important one under the CARES Act. Just a quick overview of what it is. It is a temporary new product under the SBA family, first come, first served. Again, we know that the new funding is coming, so apply right away. It is 100% federally guaranteed loan, so you will not be asked for a tax return or your credit check. Very low interest rates at 1%. And the most powerful provision of this program is that if you use the loans correctly, it will turn into a grant and you don't have to repay it. Again, once we get to the forgiveness stage, work with your CPA, work with your accountant to make sure that you do it the right way. Where do I apply? You should start with your bank where you have your business relationship. Later in the slides, I am giving 2 links to an online bank that does not require a business relationship. And one of my Wells Fargo clients has successfully applied to the first link. They are getting a loan, so it's real. Again, the entire loan, if you're playing your cards right, can be forgiven, the principal and the accrued interest. Again, the applications may be submitted through June 30th. We now know that they need to be submitted right away because the funding may be interrupted again. So these are the websites. You will have a copy of this PowerPoint. Dianne will distribute it after the presentation. So Lendio is is the website that my client, my Wells Fargo client applied to. They're successfully getting a loan. So those are just alternatives to those clients that don't have, you know, where the bank is stopping processing this PPP applications. Sole proprietors, so I want to kind of concentrate on issues that just relate to sole proprietors and independents. There's been some clear guidance from SBA that came last week. Again, I'm just gonna concentrate on the people that are sole proprietors that have no employees. There is a different calculation for the ones that have employees. So basically step one, you have no more gross receipts, you're completely shut down due to this crisis, start with unemployment. Apply for unemployment. Your second step is to apply to the Paycheck Protection Program. And then the third step, if you feel that EIDL is a program for you, you will apply for that as well. Remember, if you get the PPP loan, you will have to let your unemployment insurance know that you've gotten that loan, or you might be on the hook for repaying those benefits. So be very careful with that.
Trina,
again,
can I just, Trina,
yes.
that's it. So just repeat that for everybody, because a couple of people are, you know, commenting on that. So you have, when you apply for everything,
You apply for
you
everything.
receive one, you let everybody know.
Your unemployment gets backdated, let's say back to February or beginning of March. And let's say on May 1st or May 15th, you get this PPP loan. You will need to let your unemployment insurance know on May 15th, hey, I gotten this loan, I need to get off unemployment. So you will be getting your unemployment, let's say from March 1st through the date you get the loan, let's say May 15th. So that's a very important point, because if you don't stop it, the state will come after you and ask you to repay those insurance benefits. Again, how much can I borrow? 2.5 times your average monthly payroll costs. I will explain that for sole proprietors. You're capped at $100,000 per person. And what I say is you can only receive one PPP loan, so it's important to consider applying for the maximum amount here. Again, I'm self-employed, I don't have employees. What am I qualifying for? So you are a self-employed person if you're a sole proprietor and you report your business income on Schedule C as part of your tax return. Your salary will be determined by your net profit reported on your 2019 Schedule C. So 2019 is very important. They're not going to accept 2018. So some of you that have not filed yet, get with your accountant, get a draft of Schedule C. They will accept that until you get your act together and file it, but they're not going to accept 2018. They're going to look at 2019 tax return. Yes, Dianne?
Trina, just because I know you like questions as they go along, because there's so many. On the PPP loan, there doesn't seem to be a written criteria for the calculation on the forgivable part of the loan. If you get money based on a certain number of employees, then only bring back a portion of that staff. Can you still spend the 75% on that reduced staff and be forgiven for that portion of the loan?
No, and I will address that later in the
All
presentation.
right, good. Thank you.
I have a slide on that, and that's an important point, and it's very important for seasonal businesses such as event businesses.
Thank you.
So moving on, the application started on April 10th. So what I tell my sole proprietors, let's get your act together, let's get this information, get your numbers, and apply right away. So again, what information will be required by the banks? We know that they will absolutely require your 2019 Schedule C. They might also require your 1099s that you've received from your contractors, 2019 bank statements, 2019 bookkeeping records. They might even ask you for your 2020 bank statements just to make sure that you were in business before this crisis. This is your Schedule C. If you're not familiar with this, you will be after applying for this program. That's kind of how it looks. Again, they will accept a draft. And everything will be based on this number. on line 31, and I highlighted it. So if this number here is above $100,000, it's maxed out at 100,000. So you will bring it down to 100,000 and calculate your amount that way. What if your amount is 0 or less? For example, if you invested some money into buying equipment or expanding your business, you might run a loss. It is a normal, part of business. Unfortunately, you're not going to be eligible for the PPP loan. It's part of the SBA guidance. You're just not going to get anything if this line is 0 or a negative. Again, quick calculation that you can take with you. You take that number on line 31, you divide it by 12. That's your average monthly payroll amount for the purpose of this loan. Even though you're a sole proprietor, you don't get payroll. We get it. There is no W-2. That's how you calculate your monthly salary per se. You take that monthly salary times 2.5, that's the maximum amount of loan requested. And these are the two numbers that you will need to apply. So once you have those two numbers, go ahead and submit your application and wait till a human calls you back from the bank. Next, I want to address the partnerships and LLCs. The information was not available to us the last time we met. So now there's clear guidance from an SBA that the partners are not to apply themselves, that they need to include their self-employment income as part of the partnership PPP loan. We kind of thought about that. I did announce it in the previous presentation. It did happen. So basically, they're still limited to $100,000. So if you have 3 partners in the partnership, for example, they're all making $150,000 a year, you would add $300,000 for them to the partnership application. What happens if you already filled out an application and you excluded the partners because there was just no guidance and we didn't know how to apply? So what happens to those partnerships? So I want to introduce you to this concept of safe harbor, and John, if he's still around, he can comment on that later. But basically, safe harbor says, you know what, at the time that you applied for the loan, the legislation was not clear. The law was not clear. And now you would like to change your calculation because there is some new information that came into light. And I don't see why a bank would not allow you to do that if you actually get to speak to a human. So that's what I advise my clients that have not done that. Seasonal employers. Like many of you on the call in the event industry. So basically, one of the provisions of forgiveness, it is very clear. It says you cannot reduce the amount of full-time equivalents, okay? And something that Dianne has asked, somebody has asked on the call already. So basically, this is the formula. You need to take your average monthly full-time equivalent employees in 8-week period, and you're going to divide them by either one of those denominators. And we're going to talk about that. What's the important part of that? So in the previous presentation, I kind of went over into that of how to calculate full-time equivalents. You basically take all your part-timers in a period, you add them all up, you divide it by a full-time employee's work hours, which is 2,080, and you come up with this, what is called full-time equivalents. It's not a body for body, it's just a mathematical equation. And then once you get that loan, you decide, okay, who am I gonna bring back? I might bring back John, but John used to be a part-timer. You're now gonna offer him a full-time position just to satisfy this full-time equivalency concept. And so at the time that many of my clients have filled out an application, we thought that we have to report an average employee number based on just 2019 employment records. Turned out to be not the case. As a seasonal employee, you can choose one of these calculations. And what I say to my clients, run a calculation for every period and choose the number of employees choose the period that has the least number of employees.
Oh, okay.
Very simple. It was very simple math, Dianne. For most clients, calendar year 2019 is not going to be the best option because it's going to have the majority of employees. So for most of my client, period number 2, January 1st, between January 1st and February 29th this year, produced the least amount of full-time equivalents. And that's what we're going with. Again, just do the math, figure out which one of the 3 periods is going to work for you and use it in your favor. That's something that was not readily available at the time the program offered. Again, just call on Safe Harbor and change the amount of employees, because you don't want to bring everybody back. I mean, sometimes you can't. Again, once you get the PPP loan, and
Trina, I'm sorry, that raises a question too. If you go through the period where you have the minimal amount of
employees,
and for some reason business picks up, can you then use that stimulus check to pay additional people?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that's the key here. The
key is here to come up with the minimum.
Right.
And then you can always go up from there.
Right. Got it. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, surprisingly, a lot of my clients already started getting the PPP loans. So once you get the PPP loan, we will move into forgivable stage and work with your CPA on how to use the money correctly, really understand the difference of 8 weeks period and 2.5 months of the loan amount, which I'll cover in the next slide. But basically, you must spend at least 75% of the loan on payroll costs. Payroll costs can include salaries, health insurance, retirement benefits, all that good stuff. No more than 25% on non-payroll costs like rent, utilities, interest on mortgage. I got a question from a client last night. Can we pay interest on a line of credit that we got? And it turns out that they just got that line of credit, and the answer was no. Your loan had to be in place on February 15th. Your rent had to be in place on February 15th. So you just went out and got a new rental property. Not going to work. Sole proprietors, be very careful. You must have claimed the deduction for such expenses on your Schedule C. So if you had utilities, you had office rent, you had home office on your Schedule C for 2019, no problem. But if you didn't have it, they're not going to allow you to just get a new office, get a new utility contract. That's not going to happen. So that's one of the catches. Again, it's not going to be a slam dunk process. So work with your CPAs on that. There is no guidance from SBA, but there is a consensus in our profession. Consider opening a separate business checking account when you get that money. So then you have clear record, you can do transfers, you can run payroll through that account. You're gonna be asked for a lot of written evidence so you can get your loan forgiven. Nobody's just gonna be like, well, here's forgiven. You're gonna have to substantiate every single expense. Again, be careful when you're using funds to help pay your mortgage. If you're one of those that works from home, like all of us do right now, there's an allocation that's done by accountants. You can only use that based on the percentage. So it's very important to understand the difference. So you have that money now and you have 8 weeks to spend it correctly, that it's 100% forgiven. But remember, your loan is based on 2.5 months. So you have this inherent difference. You have a lot more money than maybe potentially you're able to spend in 8 weeks. Again, work with your CPA on figuring that out. You might have to bring more employees back. So what happens if I misuse the funds? They will ask you to repay them. You might also be charged with fraud. I am not going to be surprised that we're going to hear more fraud cases happening on the news. So once you get that loan, you will have 6 months of automatic deferment. So you're not going to have to make any payment of principal until 6 months. The interest will still accrue on that amount. So these are just a quick graphic on understanding the stages of PPP. Obviously, determining the maximum loan amount that you qualify for is very important because you might not be able to change your mind later on. So, your accountant might be able to help you with that. Apply for the PPP application. And then once you get that loan, you really need to plan for 100% forgiveness. That's the goal for our firm and our clients. You need to budget the loan proceeds correctly. Again, it's not going to be a slam dunk, easy calculation. It might involve a professional.
Trina, and you mentioned just a little bit ago, the loans are good for 6 months, right? But that's like at this point in time. If and this is the big crystal ball, none of us know, if this curve comes back and this W happens, as Jonathan mentioned before, everyone then things might change again.
Things might change again. So
right.
Again, I'm presenting the information that we know now, as we know before. Things change every week. So as we know more information, we'll obviously communicate.
Right, and here's another one. Is there this plan for 100% forgiveness? Is there a place to get the plan to understand?
No, there is no place yet. AICPA, which is the body that regulates us CPAs, will come up with a spreadsheet. They will actually post it on their website. And the name of the regulating body is AICPA. So once they publish it for us, we'll be obviously distributing it to our clients. It's most likely going to be a calculation spreadsheet.
And a couple more before we go on, Trina. How long do we have to use the loan? Is it 8 weeks,
8 weeks.
From when it's received?
When it's received. 8
okay.
8
All right. From when it's received. Another one. How best to prove that the PPP is actually used? Excuse me, something jumped. Is actually used for payroll, and you just said set up a separate bank account.
Yes.
Keep diligent records so that someone says to you, how did you spend that $100? You can say here.
Yeah. So for example, a client contacted me last night. They did set up a separate bank account, just like I advised. They don't want to change their payroll provider to that checking account because it's obviously temporary. So what I said is run your weekly payroll. His payroll happened to be $9,300 something. And I said, transfer that exact amount from that separate checking account to your regular business account. And then you have the payroll register for that exact dollars and cents that you're going to use as a backup for that entry.
Right. Now, are there
Dianne, this is John.
Okay,
just
John.
one comment I'd like to make here. I could not agree more with Trina as the importance of keeping those funds segregated and then providing when you're withdrawing those funds to meet payroll or rent or whatever, you should sit down right now and figure out what the 75% is versus the 25% out of that loan that you now have to disperse within 8 weeks in order to qualify it out. This is one of those the IRS form over substance or substance over form. This is both form and substance that you have to meet.
Yeah.
Right. In other words, just keep really good records, date everything, make sure you have receipts attached. Trina, one thing here, just a couple here is there anything, any guideline on which utilities are covered, or is it just the basic?
It's the basic, and we think that internet is now part of utilities as well. So.
Right. Oh, okay. It says in another comment, it says in the terms of the loan that it must begin to be distributed 5 days after signing the contract. That was from Sally. I don't know exactly which loan. Sally, give me a little bit more and I'll ask Trina. And let me just see, question here. Do payroll costs include the 401k contributions for employees?
Yes. So if your company is one of the good ones and they're helping contribute the employer contributions, it will be included, the employer portion. Employee portion is obviously already included in the salaries.
Okay, let me just relay this too. So Sally says contingencies. SBA issues this authorization in reliance on representations in the loan application, including supporting documents. The guarantee is contingent upon the lender. Number one, complying with all Paycheck Protection Program requirements, including the PPP Program Guide and the Paycheck Protection Program Interim Final Rule, as amended from time to time. Goes on to say, making first disbursement of the loan no later than 5 days from the date of loan approval, and completing disbursement no later than 2 months from the date of loan approval.
So that's actually guideline for the banks. So once SBA approves the loan, they have to distribute it obviously to their client. That's what it is.
Oh, okay.
It's a guidance to the bank. So take away from here, Diane, if there's anything to take away, get ready, apply, don't stress about maybe temporary loss of funding for the program, and also really figure out your forgiveness. It's not going to be as easy process as we thought earlier. This is, again, a quick timeline that the clients can take away with them. I mean, that the listeners can take away with them. 12 months prior for sole proprietors, you know, it's based on your 2019 tax return. Once you get the loan, you have 8 weeks to spend it correctly. And then, for example, if you don't spend it correctly and some of it is denied forgiveness, maybe a couple of $1,000, you have 2 years from the date your forgiveness is denied to repay that amount. Could happen to some clients, especially the ones that don't have, you know, large rents. It's kind of hard to spend the money if you don't have, you know, you don't have that 25% to pay towards the rent. So you will be on the hook for the interest that accrued just on that balance that was not forgiven. So that's just a quick timeline on that. We know that forgiven amount is not going to be taxable for federal purposes. Yay, that's a great, you know, another bonus for that. Most likely it will be taxable to the state though. So you're going to be on the hook for that. I don't think the states are going to not tax it. Quickly, the last part of this presentation is economic injury disaster loan, EIDL, and emergency economic injury grant. Again, this is actually a product that was available through SBA before. It's not a new product. It's a loan. You will be required for the tax returns and maybe a credit check. It is administered only through SBA, so you have to apply on the website that I've listed. It's not through your bank, but very favorable interest rates. There's a deferrable period of 4 years. You have a long time to repay it, up to 30 years. Again, this is mostly for people that maybe need capital, you know, to start back up, not really for employee type of related expenses.
But Trina,
Yes.
again, I want to go back to what I heard you say before. You can have one or the other, correct?
You can have both.
Ah, okay,
You can
that's
have
good.
both. So one does not negate the other, just don't have them both for the same purposes.
All
So,
right, so okay.
PPP is for employees and paying rent. EIDL is going to be for something else. No double.
EIDL is like running your business.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Here's a couple things. Can you apply with more than one bank for the PPP?
No.
No. Okay.
They will ask you, have you applied for it? So it's one PPP per company. If you're going to be jumping and applying to different places, I think they're just going to look at you, you know.
So the other thing is the best strategy to not pay people now and wait until you get the PPP loan to pay yourself for 8 weeks until you get the loan.
Well, and again, it would depends on your specific situation.
On the situation.
Some
Okay.
of my clients have done exactly that. They couldn't sustain the payroll, and now, you know, they furloughed their employees. The employees were able to join the unemployment system, and then once they get the PPP, they will be bringing them back. If you have enough cash flow to sustain, you know, you don't want to let your employees go, but sometimes you have to.
Right. We have 10 minutes, so I'm just trying to give you the questions as we go along. Thanks.
So this is all the way at the end. So when you're applying for this economic injury disaster loan, I actually went on their website, applied almost till the end so I could capture the screenshots, and that's going to be in that presentation, Diane, that we did with Jim yesterday. just helping, small businesses apply. A lot of my clients don't have cost of goods sold. You're an independent professional putting on events. You don't have any of that. Just put 0. If you don't, you're not going to be able to move on to the next screen. So that's just a quick tip here. Part of the application asks you, I would like to be considered for an advance of up to $10,000. So go ahead and check yes. What does that mean? So at first we thought that, oh, EIDL is just going to give us $10,000. It's going to be forgiven. We don't have to repay it. We know now that's not the case. It's up to $10,000. So they can give you $2,000. We don't know. And basically whatever you get from this advance, it's considered the grant money that will have to be folded into your PPP for it to be forgiven. So we know now. So there's been a lot of confusion, Diane. How's IDL related to PPP? Just the grant portion is going to be rolled into the PPP, refinanced, and some banks are even asking, have you gotten any EIDL grants, because they know that it's going to be part of the PPP amount.
And if you have the EIDL grant and you're an independent worker, are you still able to collect unemployment until that grant comes along?
You're able to collect unemployment till something comes along.
And then the question is, what's the difference between state unemployment and PUA? And I think you covered that in one of the original slides, right?
I did.
PUA is only pandemic.
So the state has their unemployment amounts, their tables. The state has their own PUA now. So you are able to apply for the state PUA, plus you're qualifying for that extra $600 a week. That's the federal PUA. Again, everything is administered through the state. There's nowhere on the federal website to go and apply. And I want to finish this by a disclaimer. As much as I've prepared for this, we know things are changing by the hour, so there might be some outdated information there. And now if there's more questions, we can start answering those.
Yes. John, do you have any? Jonathan, are you still on the line? Would you like to make any?
I think Trina, as always, has done a great job of outlining not only the pluses, but the minuses and the care that you have to follow. It's really a question now of maintaining your books, your records, and the like. You want to be there in a way that you feel comfortable, your accountant feels comfortable in what you're going to present back for the forgiveness of the loan. And I think most of us look at this as, we want to get the money, we want to be forgiven from having to meet that obligation, but we have to bear in mind too, we've got to play the rules, play by the rules. Part of the problem is we don't know what all the rules are yet. And I think that's the enigma that we all are finding ourselves confronting. My suggestion is, work with your account, work internally, but separate that money out that you get either from EILD or from PPP. With the EILD, the $10,000, if you're going to transfer that over to your payroll protection, do that, but talk to your account, talk to your lawyer as to how that should be done, how you're going to account for it, so you might be able to have that forgiven.
Yeah, every situation is so different. It's the same, but it's different, to clarify it. And just a question for both, going back to unemployment, if my employees file for unemployment, so I am presuming they're furloughed, will this affect what I pay as a business owner moving forward? I am presuming, will my percentage pay into unemployment increase? So well, I guess, let me just read this. Going back to unemployment, if my employees file for unemployment, will this affect what I pay as a business owner moving forward? I'm presuming paying them or paying into unemployment insurance.
You're going to go back to what the state requires.
What the state requires, state by state is different, right, John? Yeah, that's what I was thinking with that.
Yeah, I mean, for example, in California, we have a cap. So once you're over the cap, the state can charge you. Yeah, you will owe the state, but I mean, at this point, like, who cares?
Right.
You're not.
Right.
At this
We're
point,
going to tell them
like,
Trina
who
sent
cares?
us.
Yeah.
Pay me now or pay me later.
Yeah. If I'm receiving unemployment insurance and I get called back to work, but also I'm also a sole proprietor, should I apply for PUA? Should I be applying for PUA or what's your
Absolutely.
advice? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You must apply for PUA so you get the maximum amount, and you'll cross that bridge when you get there, you know?
Right.
And don't be bashful.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's basically, you know, in our previous discussions is it's confusing, and
Yeah.
whether you're listening as a business owner, an independent contractor, an LLC, is every situation is different, but just apply and then speak to the person and work out your own situation. Would you say that, Trina?
Yeah, so basically it's just knowing your rights, knowing that there are options available to you. Don't get overwhelmed by them. Apply in every line, and you get to learn information while you're waiting in line. Like, for example, for unemployment benefits in California, there is over 4 weeks backlog. You know, New York said they're clearing it. We don't know. But we don't know. But it's like eventually you will get to talk to a human. Eventually you will get help. So there are all these options available. So a lot of my clients, they just get so discouraged because they listen to social media or media news. Oh my God, they run out. I'm like, who cares? Just get your numbers in the, you know, get ready and apply when it's ready. It will be there for you.
Yeah.
Don't get discouraged and don't do, you know, and do nothing, basically.
What we've also found is that in some cases, the communication between the client and the bank on the PPP has been where they transform a number from the bank, sending it in, causing a problem in getting the money coming back from the government. The deal there is you got to double check the paperwork before you submit it. And then also always check with your lender as to what they submitted. So if there is an error, and I've had 2 incidents now where there's been an error of a transformation of a number that has blocked it. Once that was corrected, the money was there, they got the money, but there was a lot of anxiety as they were waiting for it, thinking that they were in line, but the funding had run out. The funding was still there, it just wasn't for the right number. So, you know, don't be discouraged. If you get somebody says you didn't get it yet, push it back and find out why you didn't get it, and then make sure you check the paperwork.
And I just want to comment on the question that I'm seeing in my comment box on Wells Fargo. So someone has asked about Wells Fargo. So if you have applied with Wells Fargo and you have received the confirmation number, there's actually something in writing, that means that you're in line. So, but if you have not, because some of my clients just went to apply and it says closed, so they went ahead and applied on their website. So I'm hoping I'm answering that question correctly. If you're already in line with Wells Fargo, you have some kind of documentation on that, you know, go ahead and wait. That's what I was trying to say. Don't try to apply at a lot of different places. But if your bank is just saying it's closed, then there are online lenders that you can try with them.
Right.
Yeah, credit unions and others, community banks are now getting some preference, or it's supposed to be getting some preference overall. Though if you look at the numbers, I don't know what it was the last count, but it was in a high percentage that the local community banks were getting it. Here in Illinois, I know a lot of lawyers who applied for loans, and they were dealing with little towns like Litchfield, Illinois, and theirs were coming through rapidly, whereas people in Chicago going through Chase or Wells Fargo or Bank of America were being stacked up and not really moving.
Yeah.
Right. So basically be in touch with your bank, start with your bank for the process of application. In the 2 minutes that we have wrapping up, Trina, you want to give us a couple comments, John, before we leave? And thank you both.
Go forth and do battle.
Yes, go forth and do battle. Right, Trina?
Yes. Don't get discouraged. The money will be there. They'll print more money. That's all it takes.
Well, they don't even have to print it. All I have to do is transfer it.
Yeah, just quick print. That's just gonna.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, this is the thing. Look, we're all anxious. There's so much information. There's too much information out there. It's one of the reasons I like to bring these events to you all, because Jonathan, people like Jonathan, everyone you've heard from today is living this. And Trina, thank you for that AICPA reference too. And just to remind everybody, Trina's PowerPoint will be available, and an additional bonus of 1.5 hours specifically focusing on independents, Trina? Without it?
Just sole proprietors, walking them step by step in the application process for both PPP and EIDL, those sole proprietors that don't have employees. So we spend like an hour on that. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you both. Thank you very much.